The Web 1.0, Web 2.0 world, of which I don't really know the definitions of all of them. I can't keep up with what Web 2, 3, 4.0 we are. But I think what it talks to is really, at the end of the day, the sophistication in terms of how people are moving towards community-based websites or tools and features. And you can see that what we would deem as Web 1.0 tools, as email and instant messengers, continue to grow, but they grow in other ways through the growing of communities like your implementation within Facebook, some of these tools, and social networking, video, multimedia, blogging are some of the categories that are growing the most in terms of time spent. So you can see that some of these Web 2.0 tools are growing faster than the Web 1.0 world. And then, as we talked about, Canada's Facebook nation, you've heard this before, but when you look at a worldwide perspective, you can see that Canada ranks #1 against all these countries and all countries that we measure as it pertains to percentage or reach, time spent in terms of average visitors and average usage days. So just a really big usage. Search. Forgot to ask that question. Who's done a search over the past day on the web? Okay, cool. Just making sure. Okay, so what we see is we're not the only ones. Canada is the most active or intense searchers around the world. We can see that the average Canadian does more searches than any other country around the world. We do a lot of searches. The average Canadian does about 131.3 searches per searcher over the period of the month, and that leads the world. It's not just regular actual searches that are growing, but there's toolbar searches, video searches, instant messenger searches, which are driving some of the growth. And what we still see is that search growth is growing faster than the growth of the total internet audience. So search is still very important, and you can see here that Google in this country has about 80 to 81% of all searches, followed by MSN and Yahoo, then some of the other search engines. Mobile. So if you look a little bit at the lifelong view of the mobile universe, and back to Alexander Graham Bell, the cell phone used to just be there to initiate phone calls, receive phone calls, and you were in one place. Then Wall Street came, and I hear Wall Street's coming again, unfortunately. And you can see that big brick on his ear. That was the sophistication of that, so you were able to move to different places. And then with the advent of BlackBerry and the iPhone, you're able to do everything. And what we're seeing is, when there's the sophistication of a media, it moves towards a female-based audience. And what we can see with mobile in the US is already moved there. So about 52% of mobile users in the US are female and 48% are male. And I think one of the stats that gets me the most is when you look year-over-year growth in terms of mobile growth, it's about 3.3% of users. So there's not a huge percentage of growth in terms of people who have cell phones. But what that really brings to is that voice is no longer the killer application on cell phones. So what it really has become is that people with voice-only plans or people with only talk-only plans are actually decreasing. And what we're seeing, the increase is on the content side. So really at the end of the day, voice is no longer the killer application on the phone, and people are SMSing, people are taking photos, people are using the web, searching, localizing for the best content. And what we can see is if you look at the top 1,000 phones in the US, you can see that the growth is happening on the devices that are either touchscreen or smartphones, led by the BlackBerry Curve, and then followed by a couple of things we call the iPhone. And then you can see that of these top mobile phones, you can see that the smartphone is some of the most growing. And I think one of the key stats here as it pertains to mobile is if you look at Facebook usage as an example. What we see is on the web, the average user on the web spends about 27.5 minutes over the period of a day, coming back about 2.3 times to Facebook. Now, if you look at in the mobile world, what we can see is on Facebook for mobile web, you can see that the average user goes to Facebook and spends about 24 minutes over the period of the day, but visits 3.3 visits over the period of the day. So the amount of visitation, the amount of frequency is something that's obviously very important. So to think about the mobile web world is the glass half empty, glass half full type of theory. So, obviously there's a lot of pros and cons to mobile, and I think some of those cons are being aided by the growth of smartphone usage in this country and around the world. think about advertising, you know, you think a year back ago, it used to be just SMS marketing and text marketing, but now it's really changing. So what we're seeing is it's not just text advertising, it's not just Obama advertising for text links, it's now all advertisers. So we're seeing a great growth in the amount of advertisers who are advertising on mobile. So it's not just it's not just a fad. It's now become a reality for a lot of big advertisers. So the final thing I want to talk about is obviously something that's near and dear to my heart, which is metrics. So I think one key thing we've always been fooled about in this industry is metrics. The internet is the most measurable media. I heard that a couple million times in my lifetime. The problem is sometimes you need to make sure to use the right metrics to make sure that we get the best story for what's happening on the web. So Comscore over the past short term has done over 200 studies, really helping us to understand the search world, the display world, and the combination of usage of search and display. And what we wanted to kind of come up with is, through looking at all of these different studies, and I'll get more in depth, and I could get more in depth, I have 18 minutes, so I want to make sure to get as much data in as I could, is at the end of the day, when you think about clicks, and you think clicks on display ads are not always a useful term or useful metric to use, because they should not be used to measure the whole campaign. They should be used to measure certain types of campaigns or certain types of advertising, but not your display advertising. Display advertising, you lose a lot by just measuring clicks. You measure you don't get the offline effect. You don't measure anything about brands. Using clicks can be diluted by the cookie effect, because there's so much cookies are diluting the actual numbers. So make sure don't only use clicks. But one of the things that's really important in understanding is, when you think about display advertising, whether someone clicks or does not click, at the end of the day, they're still really moving the needle as it pertains to some of the key indicators, which is site visitation or brand awareness, intent to purchase. And you can see, with or without a click, even latently, up to 4 weeks after somebody sees a display ad, you can see that site visitation, or people visiting a website as it pertains to what's being advertised, is growing exponentially even 4 weeks later. And I think it just talks to the power of the web and the power of combining search and display advertising. Because you see, alone, display advertising doesn't fully pull the needle on the actual purchase cycle alone. But once you combine, and when you think about search, search does push the needle, but combine those two worlds combined really give an amazing campaign. So that's the end of my 20 minutes. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the day. It's a great day full of content and speakers. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to find me at the break. Thank you very much.